communications and the ways that we are going to really look at helping to increase the number of events to help support students and families in their FAFSA completion. I know that we are going to start right at 2, but we're going to give a couple of minutes to allow people to join us. So I can sing a little bit, we can all dance a little bit. It's Friday. So we will begin just momentarily. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Charbonnell. I am the Director of Advocacy and Engagement for myFutureNC. We are really excited about everybody joining us today. We had great energy and engagement as we're really looking forward to encouraging many across the state to participate in what we're calling the FAFSA Drive-In to Your Future spring events. As many of you know, increasing FAFSA completion rate is a fundamental step in our state's efforts to meet our post-secondary attainment goal. We have got a group of collaborative partners across the state that is really working towards what we have labeled as the First in FAFSA Collaborative. Many mean everything from our tracker to the challenge that we have put up. Okay, I'm going to try this again. Can everybody hear me now? Great, thank you. Looks like we had just a little bit of a Zoom hiccup. I'm not quite sure where I dropped off, but I just wanted to thank all of our partners across the state that has been really working with us with this First in FAFSA initiative. For those of you that don't know, the NC First in FAFSA initiative really kicked off this year to help increase in the FAFSA completion rate as part of our fundamental step towards our state's efforts to meet our post-secondary attainment goal. If you have gone out to the site, we have done everything from putting out a statewide FAFSA tracker to creating a challenge amongst many of our schools, as well as putting additional tools and resources out there for many of our schools to be able to support their students and families. I want to go ahead and kick this off. We have April Query, who is joining us from CFI and the College Foundation, Catherine Marker, who is also joining us from NCASFAA, also with the College Foundation, and then Patty Harris, who is also joining us with Gear Up. We are excited to talk a little bit more about our 2021 FAFSA Drive-In to Our Future spring event, and with that, I will hand it off to Catherine.
Sounds great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Catherine Marker. As Chris said, I'm from the State Education Assistance Authority, and we are the state agency that helps North Carolina pay for education. And the first step to paying for the education is the FAFSA. So we're excited about all of the attention in North Carolina to FAFSA events. It's an interesting year. There's a lot of good, exciting new FAFSA tools and new collaboratives. As you well know, it's also a challenging year, and we are hoping that our FAFSA drive-ins will fill a gap. Many of our students just need some help. They might need something as basic as Wi-Fi, and we want to play a role in providing that necessary support. So if we are describing to you these events, I hope that we can provide a framework, the support that would make events in your locations successful. A secondary goal is just a lot of attention, as well as helping many individual families, many students. We hope to garner local state attention on the importance of FAFSA completion. So a lot of exciting communication tools planned. So it's a good time to join in, and I'm really glad that you're here. So I'm gonna pass it over to Patty Harris from Gear Up, and we'll dive into some of the logistics.
Awesome. Thank you, Catherine. Good afternoon, everyone. We are excited that all of you have joined us on this Friday afternoon. And I'm excited to share more details and logistics about this event. And as noted, we will definitely have room for questions at the end. So what we're kind of expecting or would like to share with all of you is that we're still expecting for this to be more like a drive-through format. Recognizing that some campuses across the state may be opening up their doors and relaxing some things. But for our recommendations, we're still operating on keeping things safe and distance. And so thinking about this from a drive-through format, providing safe one-on-one support. And so the dates that we are expecting for these events to take place are in the month of April, three different Saturdays that your site can select whichever Saturday works best for you. And the time frame would be roughly 10 to 2 during that day. Originally in our planning process, we were looking at locations in the various prosperity zones across the state. And this kind of got us to this number of 16. However, if we're not holding it to that number, and we encourage anyone and everyone, and if you would like to become a host site, and based on what we share today, you think that this will be a great opportunity in at your institution, we say come one, come all. So do not let this restrict you here at all. And our host just posted the registration form in the chat, so feel free to take a look at that. And there are a few questions that go right along with this presentation that we're asking you to provide more information on. Thank you. Okay. And next slide. And here's part of the nitty gritty, what we are anticipating our host sites to provide. Again, keeping up with this drive-through format, we started off with 2 masked volunteers at minimum. Ideally thinking about having volunteers to help direct traffic, making sure that guests, students, and families know which parking lot to arrive at, where to park. Things to think about here also is you might want to think about cars being safely distanced apart, so maybe a parking space in between. And then of course to check in and assist families as they arrive. Almost like your welcome crew. In addition to that, making sure that the parking lot that you may select for location does provide access to free guest Wi-Fi. You might want to think about communicating the instructions to log on to that Wi-Fi. If there is a guest password, what that is. And this can be a part of information that your volunteers share and or signage. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. If your institution, number 3, are a little hesitant about or thinking of different ways to connect with students, feel free to think about this from a virtual call center support. And so April will talk a little bit about this on the next slide as well, about what some different situations can look like, but different ways that you can support students at home. So maybe you have families and students that may not be able to get out to your host site. And so it could be worth thinking about having 1 or 2 volunteers at your institution available by phone, where students and families can still call to receive guidance and assistance to complete their FAFSA. Number 4, also an easily accessible parking lot. We've definitely done a bit of research, thanks to our CFNC partners and our reps who have utilized and shared their great knowledge with us to try and connect with some of our institutions to think about, which parking lots are best accessible for students. But that's just something to keep in mind when you're thinking about the exact location for a host site. Of course, signage. Chris will talk a little bit more about our communications plan and what we're able to offer in a little bit there. But then feel free to utilize your resources that you have on campus or in your office. You might already have balloons or tents or signage that you can already put up or utilize. And so we definitely encourage you to use that. So I'll stop there. I don't want to answer questions just yet because Chris is going to talk about some of that. But thank you for going ahead and putting them in the chat. And then last but not least, in the event that you are not a host site, but you're still interested in volunteering, we definitely encourage you to volunteer at host sites. I know that we have a variety of guests on this call that may not be assigned to a particular institution, but you may be like a college advisor or with College Advising Corps. And so we definitely encourage you to partner with some of the community colleges to become a volunteer, to answer questions and be additional support to the students. And then I will turn it over to April to talk a little bit more about some of the details and logistics and things to consider.
Thank you. So keep your questions coming in the chat box. We're going to address those in just a few minutes when the formal part of our presentation is over. Again, I'm April Query with College Foundation, and we just wanted to kick off this portion with some visuals of some other events that have happened. So on the left, you'll see a high school that held an event like this in Elizabeth City in conjunction with the College Advising Corps. And then we'll see that Allegheny High School had a program. And then this is another photo of an event in Arizona that had multiple colleges kind of come in, and the different tents had some of the different colleges and admissions. And so there's different ways that everyone can do this. And we have really spent a lot of time thinking about and acknowledging that geographically the needs are different in North Carolina with what type of program you might want to have with what type of program you might want to have and how big you want it to be and how your different families need help, because obviously it is different, very different depending on where we are in North Carolina. So we recognize that. And so that's why we were really hoping to give everyone several ideas about this to kind of think through how you might meet the needs of your families to get those FAFSAs completed as you're considering signing up as a host site. So let's move on and talk about a few other things that we might want to consider. Let's go to the next slide. Thank you. So a couple of things, and Patty talked about some of this, but as you're thinking about having your event on your campus, the logistics we talked a little bit about, having a nice big open parking lot, having Wi-Fi available. The big thing here is to make sure, obviously, that it's a safe event. In no way are we suggesting that everyone run out with no masks and talk to each other and get in everyone's personal space here. We're not suggesting that at all. We're just trying to make sure that our families' FAFSAs get submitted, because we all know, and you all know, that FAFSA completion numbers are low across the state and across the country. And so we talked a little bit about a safe in-person event where you have masks on, you're social distancing, you're offering some support to answer some questions. In addition to that, and or separately, you may also consider opening perhaps your office phone lines. So perhaps you have some volunteers in your financial aid office or in your office as a whole. I know a lot of times we have other departments like admissions that can answer a lot of basic financial aid questions. So you may consider opening your office lines to provide some virtual assistance for folks as they're in their vehicles and as they're having questions to get those FAFSAs completed. This would be for, you know, unless your campus opted to do something different, this really would be a bring your own device sort of event. And so we might want to remind families that they can download the student aid app on their phones, on their tablets to complete it that way. So there's some other options with that. And so, yeah, as you're kind of considering how your campus may specifically hold this, those are some options for you. We really want to boost this as a community event. I think it's a really good way for families in your area to get excited about being on campus. As you know, we have families. I live in Wilmington, and there's plenty of families here who have not stepped foot on campus at UNCW. They haven't had a reason to, they aren't able to, lots of different reasons. So this is a really good opportunity, I think, for us to get some families pushed onto our campuses and take a look at some of the exciting things that we have to offer. You may have information about your institution, about events coming up, about you know, lots of different things. You might have a giveaway, whatever thing you can think of. It's really a big thing to hopefully get people excited, get creative, and boost some excitement about college, getting the FAFSA done, getting onto campus, and what maybe lies ahead next fall. This past year has been really difficult for all of us, including our students. And the excitement there about getting on campus and doing lots of activities. And that's something that you know, some of our students might have a hard time visualizing right now. So this is a great opportunity, as I said, to get them on campus and start to picture themselves there and what life might look like in the fall and what life might look like post-COVID. And we also have some other things that we are going to be able to offer to our families across the state. So we're going to offer a statewide platform as well for families to get questions answered on those Saturdays. We may have some families that cannot, for whatever reason, leave their home or get on campus. They may not have gas money to get to a local campus or a vehicle to do so. So we just want to make sure that we're offering other assistance for families in those situations. So we're going to have a statewide platform for folks to call in between those hours of 10 and 2 on those 3 Saturdays in April to get some questions answered. And we are going to, for 2 out of those 3 Saturdays, offer bilingual support as well between CFNC and Latinx Ed. So we're going to be offering some assistance for folks to get questions answered in Spanish as well as English, again, to get those FAFSAs completed. And as well, we are planning on offering on those 3 Saturdays, 3 sort of official presentations that folks can just listen in on. Maybe perhaps they aren't going to do their FAFSA yet. Maybe they're going to wait until June 30th and do their FAFSA form. And so we're planning on offering a few of those presentations where we're calling them tricky situations, where folks can just listen in and get some questions answered if they want that way, but it's really more of a formal presentation. Again, trying to offer lots of different ways to get financial aid knowledge out there and get those FAFSAs completed. If you all have any other questions or suggestions of things that you have done before, perhaps at a drive-in event or beyond what we're offering here, we are definitely open to feedback. So feel free to send that over in the chat or send it over to one of us separately as well. So I think that is my part, and I'm going to send this back over to Chris now with myFutureNC. Thank you.
Looks like I was muted again. This has not been a good technology day for me. I'm just going to chalk it up to it's Friday. Let's get all of our wiggles out. We've got 3 or 4 hours left in the day, hopefully less, to get out to the sunshine. So there are a lot of great questions that are in the chat. Everything from how will we know what others are doing, what schools are participating? So if we're not able to participate, how can we support them? Really great questions. I want to emphasize, if you can register by March 12th, this will allow us to do all the kinds of planning, from ensuring that we have an event calendar that's out there, that we begin to help support a statewide lift in our communication so that we can begin to have our community members, our school and our districts, as well as our colleges and universities that are helping to lift up their own events, that we have an opportunity to use the platform of communications. We are also in the process of developing a communications toolkit for everyone so that we have some consistency and some branding in this, as people know that as a state, we are really working to lift up these FAFSA Drive-In to Your Future events. Expect that for those individuals that are registering, as well as any schools that do decide to participate after that time period. You will also have a toolkit sent out to you. This toolkit, along with us, you'll be able to promote within your community. There will be logos and graphics for your signage. We will also be providing social media content. We know from others that that's kind of the pain. And so we're trying to alleviate some of those pains by giving you things that you can schedule. We will also be scheduling and lifting up as well on a statewide basis. Website promotion, we will be doing this on all of our partner sites, those website promotions, and we'll also provide you some template language that you can use for yours. And then most importantly in that is that statewide media. We have secured a governor's proclamation in the month of April around FAFSA completion. Their offices will also be driving towards these events. We also have, I think for those of you that are with community colleges, April is Community College Month, so this might be a great time as well to really attract others to come to your campus and kind of see, if they can see and feel safe doing so. They'll also have these kinds of events to help support them. And then finally, on the FAFSA Drive-In Day, as we begin to in your planning, if you can help to identify a media contact or someone on site, one of the things that we are really helping to support others in is making sure that we're driving media to your campuses. And if you can have somebody on site that can help to share in video, share in photos, and hashtag the event hashtag, we'll be able to lift that up as well. We really want to help to create some momentum, particularly at that first weekend, so that we can drive greater participation and attendance as each of those weekends persist in April. Again, in the chat line, there was the registration form. Again, if you can help to register your campus by March 12th, that would really help in our overall planning. But anything that comes in afterwards, if you already have events that are planned, whether it's in the month of March or April or even May, we do have event calendars that we want to be able to lift up those events. So please do so. Somebody on the chat had asked, if we participate, will there be any kind of donations to help augment and support some of the budgetary constraints that that some of our campuses are experiencing? I don't have an answer for that today, but that is something that I can research. I do want to recommend, as many of our K-12 schools have been doing, is that many of their communities look for food donations, sponsorships. That's a great way to be inclusive of your community members. People want to help, and if they understand that there is an event that it's helping to drive other communities too, they want to be a part of that. So I'm going to be very, very encouraging of that, but I will get back to you on that question. And then I will hand this over to Catherine. It looks like we're having some technical difficulties in some of our handoffs. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the chat line and see if there is anyone else. Yes, we are happy to share this PowerPoint presentation to you. In fact, as soon as this is over, anybody that is registered for this, I'm happy to send that presentation out. Catherine, I'm going to
Sorry about that. I'm back.
Fine.
But no, go right ahead. I know you've had an eye on the chat. So as you see those questions, you know, I was out for a minute, so you might be more up to speed.
One of the questions that came in earlier was if there was an opportunity to share the list of registrants of schools that are participating. April, you had a great idea of us putting out a Google Doc so that folks can come out there, particularly those that are on this line. We will ready those for an event page, but ahead of that, we will go ahead and circulate to the group that has registered for this webinar so that you can begin to collaborate and partner, or just know where are we securing places. I think one of the things that each one of us as part of that planning committee was really striving towards was ensuring that we had coverage all across the state. We looked at those prosperity zones, we looked at the rural communities, we looked at areas where we can draw greater populations. So if there are pockets of where we're thinking, gosh, if we can really help to lift those areas up, we will be calling you.
Chris, I wanted to also mention, hopefully I'm not repeating something that was said while I was disconnected, just that our group, our planning group continues to meet and continues to try to gather resources, good practices so that we can facilitate the events. So our first effort was to get you all on the hook and interested and signed up, but we continue to talk about the materials that cfnc.org will be posting that will connect to the FAFSA drive-ins, materials that might be good candidates to print, to put on people's windshields, so we could identify specific documents that you might want to have via paper. And then, as April mentioned earlier, coordinating a statewide platform as a opportunity for that bilingual support, tricky situations, a backup level for support. Even though we know the most important part of the support is actually being connected to your community. So it would be a backup to support you in the efforts you're making locally.
And I'll add one more thing.
Other questions? Okay, the link to the presentation's in the chat. April, do you see anything else we need to bring up?
can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was going to add one more thing. I noticed another question just in terms of on the form, the registration form, if your institution or host site is also planning to do additional events throughout the rest of the spring semester, there is a place for you to share that as well. We definitely want to make sure that we are highlighting not just the 3 Saturdays for this event, but any way that we can assist you all as well in promoting your events that are also happening in your area. So there is a place on the registration form for you to share that. And I wanted to add also the note about food. With Gear Up, we also did an event in the fall, a drive-in event that really, I think, spearheaded me connecting with Catherine and say, hey, how can we take this statewide? And I encourage you to also think about your local businesses and or food trucks that might be around in your area, as that's an additional way to connect with the community and to support your local small businesses so that you're not pulling out of your pockets, but you're able to utilize the resources around you. So just wanted to share that quick idea as well.
The other piece that I might recommend from a communication standpoint is that we are communicating and have the support of our college advisors, of NCDPI and their counselors, of our CFNC regional reps, as well as our Gear Up crew. They are all out communicating with our schools and our school districts in that same tone of communication. If you decide that this is the right opportunity for you, I would highly recommend connecting back with your counselors, making sure that you are also doing the promotions to schools, not only in your service areas, but particularly ones where you think there might be some drive-in, drive-up opportunities.
I'll add just a couple of things as well, just based on some of the questions that have come through in comments. So Patty mentioned the food trucks and the College Advising Corps. Some folks on with NC State College Advising Corps mentioned that as well. They've done events like this before, and they've tried to have some Wi-Fi extenders on hand, especially in certain areas where they know they need them. And the food trucks. And I'm seeing some questions and some chat about saying, I'd like to do this. I'd like to work with other campuses in my area. And I would encourage you all to connect with each other. So if you're in an area where you're thinking that it needs to be a group of folks working together, we encourage you to connect and let us know how we can help you as you're developing that. We're happy to, help with different things. So just let us know. And we are going to, as Chris said, we're going to create a Google spreadsheet where we're going to list the folks that are signing up, so that, we're not doing this on top of each other. There's no need to duplicate resources, right? If one person's doing this, we can all kind of try to come together. So we're going to do that. And that might be also a good way if you're thinking you're interested in assisting with something somewhere in your area, but you're not sure who's hosting, who's registered for this. So as we list those, perhaps you can find ways to connect with that too. And I also saw some question come through about if this has to be on a college campus. And so it doesn't have to be. That was our initial kind of push for this, was it makes sense logistically, right? It makes sense, you guys are great partners with all of this. And we have the space and the parking lots, but if there's a place in your area that makes more sense, it's a community hub, that is the place where folks are going to go, then that's where it makes sense to be. So let us know how we can help support you in that. And the last thing I'll say, Catherine had mentioned on it, CFNC, we're doing a spring campaign. And the reason we mentioned it is we're going to have some resources available for you all that they don't necessarily pertain to this, but it could be something that you might find helpful. We're going to be listing some different things like colleges that are still free to apply to. We're just trying to make sure we're pushing students who have not really decided if they're going to go to college next fall because of life and how this has been. We're just trying to make sure that those students know there's still resources. It's not too late. We can still get our FAFSA done. We can still look at different institutions. And so we'll have some resources coming out for that too. That's a variety of different things. So those would be some things that you can use as well. That's it.
I just went ahead and updated the chat line again. We are continuing to get questions about if we already have events planned and you would like for us to lift it up. Please go ahead and fill out that registration form. There is an area on the registration form to add your existing events, so you don't need to necessarily put, yes, I want to do a new one, but just tell us what your existing events are. Or you can email NC First and FAFSA at myfuturenc.org.
So, do you think we touched on all the questions, team? Seeing anything else?
So
I think that's all of it. And here's all of our contact information again. If anyone has some follow-up questions you think about after this, we're happy to help you with whatever we can help with to get these going.
And thank you all so much for joining our call. We definitely recognize that we are all in this together, that we are only as strong as a unified team. So we are looking forward to working with everyone in some shape, form, or fashion.
That's right.
And thank you so much for coming and joining us on this Friday afternoon.
Yes, thank you.